All right, hello you guys. So now we're going to be doing chapter 2 lecture, but we're also going to be reviewing chapter 1. And one of the first things that I need to let you know is that in this lecture, I'm going to be giving you chapter 1 and chapter 2 quiz passwords. Okay, so obviously if you saw chapter 1, you noticed that I did not give you chapter 1 quiz password. So I will be giving that to you today. So sometime during this lecture, look out for that. Okay, I will either put it in the chat or put it in a whiteboard. I believe I'll probably put it in a whiteboard. Okay, so just watch out for that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to review what we did in chapter 1 and what I had told you to work on before you came into chapter 2 lecture. Okay, so I have given you this definitions, and one of the things that we're going to be doing is remember that you can build words based on definitions of the word parts. So remember what the word parts are. They are the word roots, which is the core meaning of the word. Okay, there are prefixes which come before the word root. It is only attached to a word root, and or a suffix, okay, to create a word, and it changes the meaning of the word. Word parts that come at the end of the word that also change the meaning of the word are called suffixes. And then there are combining vowels, which combine two word roots together, or they combine a word root with a suffix to make it easier for you to pronounce or enunciate. Okay, combining vowels are usually the letter O, but it can be the letter I, the E, or the Y, and they do not change the meaning of the word. Okay, so just be aware of that. Make sure you remember what those word parts are. So instead of analyzing a word, we are going to build a word. And building means that I give you a definition, and then from the definition, we create a word from there. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. You should have done this on your own. Let's see if you are correct. Okay, so number 1, disease of the bone. So remember, when we write a definition, usually we start off with the suffix. So disease is going to be the suffix most of the time. It just depends on how the definition is written, but most of the time, the definitions that are written when we do building exercises as part of your textbook exercises will come at the beginning of the definition, which identifies it as a suffix. So disease means pathy. And bone means osteo. And remember, these are word parts that I had given you before in chapter 1 so that you can start building words based on these definitions. And it would be osteo as the combining form. So the way that we write the word, we start with bone because that's going to be my beginning part, right? So it's going to be oste. And osteopathy is not the right way to say it. We need a combining vowel. Okay, so it's osteopathy. Okay, although I think I have seen it written osteopathy, but it's really osteopathy. Okay, so pathy again means disease of the bone. Okay, next one, pertaining to below the liver. Okay, so now pertaining to, I gave you two suffixes that meant pertaining to. One of them was ic, IC, and the other one was us, OUS. So which one do you use? Well, let's figure this out. So pertaining to can either be ic or us. And notice that I put a hyphen in the front to indicate that this goes at the end of the word. Below is a prefix, so that gives me location. A word root will not give me location. The word root will usually give me an anatomy, an anatomical part, or a thing, okay? Whereas the prefix or the suffix will give me location. It can give me amount. It can give me size, okay, that kind of thing. So below means location, so that's going to be a prefix. So below, one of the prefixes I gave you before was sub. And notice that my hyphen is now at the end of the prefix to show that this is connected in front of the word. Okay, and then liver, the word root for liver is hepat. Okay, all right, so the way that we create this word is going to be below goes first because that's going to be the prefix, so it's sub. And then I'm going to attach the prefix to my word root, hepat. And because both of my suffix choices are both ending with vowel, I'm not going to add the combining vowel. It's just going to be the ik or us. So which one would it be? Well, let's use us, subhatus. I don't think I've ever heard that word before. Okay, so it's going to be subhepatic. So let me see if I can put this. It would be subhepatic. That means pertaining to below the liver. Okay, so pertaining to within the vein. So again, we have ik or us as pertaining to. Within is intra. That was the one that I had given you before. And vein is ven, is the word root, or combining form, because I'm adding the combining vowel to it. Okay, so how do we start it? Again, within is the prefix, so I'm going to start with my prefix. So that's going to be intra, and then I'm going to attach it to my word root, then. And again, both of my suffixes have a vowel, so I'm not going to use my combining vowel. Intravenic, or is it intravenous? I think it's intravenous or intravenous. Okay. And for those of you that are familiar with intravenous term, you also see it as an acronym as IV. So whenever you do an IV fluid, an IV injection, it's intravenous, right? You're going to do it within the vein, okay? And then there's inflammation of the liver. So inflammation is a new suffix. It's itis. And liver, we've already seen before above. That's hepat. So again, your suffix has a vowel, so I don't need a combining form here. So it's hepatitis. Okay. Inflammation of the bone and joint. So again, we have itis. Bone is oste. And joint is arthro. Okay, so because I put bone first, I'm going to use that first as the beginning of my word. So oste. Now, when I'm combining two word roots where the second word root, they're both ending and beginning with vowels, some people might put osteoarth, but I'm going to put osteo, Arthur, and then itis. Because it sounds better, osteoarthritis. Okay? So that means that you're going to have inflammation of both the bone and the joint. Do not just have simple arthritis, you have osteoarthritis, which is even worse. Okay, so that's how that works. All right, so let's go back to that long word that we talked about before. And let's see if you remember. Now we're going to analyze it. So we have pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolleconiosis. Okay, so the way that you're going to separate this and analyze this is this way. Okay, so let's go ahead and make separations. Okay, so if you, let me enlarge this a little bit so you can see it better. Okay, so the first section that we're going to separate is pneumon, and it's actually pneumano, but let me see if I can do this. Ah, hold on. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, pneumon, and then O is my combining vowel. And then I'm going to separate ultra is my next section. Micro, and then scopic, and then silico, silic, O, volcan, O, and then, oops, coniosis. Okay, so there we go. So that's how we're going to be dividing it. So every time you see a combining vowel, this will give you an idea. Every time you see a combining vowel like this, so pneumon is going to be a word root. Silic is going to be a word root. Volcan is going to be a word root. And Connie is going to be a word root. Okay? This is a peculiar word because you see prefixes in the middle of the word as opposed to on the beginning of the word. Like ultra is a prefix. Micro is a prefix because it's giving you size. It's giving you amount. Okay? And then scopic is actually a suffix because it's a diagnostic type of term. And osis is a condition. So that gives us the suffix, and obviously it's at the end of the word. Okay, so that's how you're going to separate it. So let me show you how we're going to define it. So pneumon means lung or air. Ultra means extreme. Micro means small. Scopic means pertaining to visual examination. Silico means silicon. It's a type of I guess it would be a mineral. I think it's a mineral. And then volcan is referring to mineral particles that make up a volcano. Connie means dust, and osis means abnormal condition. So if we were to combine all of this, our definition would be abnormal condition of the lung, because that's what osis is. It's an abnormal condition of the pneumon, the lung, brought on as a result of inhalation of pertaining to visual examination of extremely small particles of ash and silicate dust. Okay, so what does this mean? It actually tells you that you have an abnormal condition where you were close to a volcano erupting and you breathed in all these ultramicroscopic silicon volcanic dust. So this whole word is very, very particular. It gives us what part of your anatomy you're affected, which is your lung. It's obviously an abnormal condition. It's not something that you normally breathe in, right? The size of what you're breathing in, the size of these particles are ultramicroscopic. That is very small, okay? Which means that it's a plume in the air, and obviously, where is it coming from? It's coming from a volcano. Okay, now you don't have to be geographically very close to a volcano. You just have to be in the vicinity of even where the air blows this eruption, because you can be miles away from the volcano erupting and still be exposed to this tiny, tiny microscopic dust in the air that you're breathing in, even though you are not directly underneath the volcano when it erupted. Okay, obviously, if you were underneath the volcano when it erupted, you probably are dead. Okay, but if you are in a distance where this dust is blowing, the wind is blowing this dust, and you're close enough to it, then you can be having this condition because you're exposed to this dust. So the whole point of this exercise is, one, that you understand that you can divide and separate the sections of a word into smaller components, use the definition of those components, and put them all together to find the meaning of the whole term, even though it can be hundreds of parts put together, or it can be a very small thing. Okay, so it really doesn't matter what it is. We can figure it out. Okay, the other one that I had you do was this one, esophagogastroduodenoscopy. Okay, so SCOPy, the color separation tells you where you would separate when you analyze. SCOPy is your suffix, esophag O is your combining form, gastro is a combining form, and duodeno is a combining form. So you have 3 word roots connected by two combining vowels, and then another combining vowel here to connect it to the suffix. Okay, so a SCOPy is a visual examination. And what am I examining? I'm examining your esophag or esophagus. Gastro stands for stomach, and duoden means the duodenum, which is the first section of your small intestine. So I'm basically going to put a tube with a camera at the end down your nose or down your throat, actually not your nose, your throat, and it's going to go down your esophagus, which I'm going to look for. Probably I'm looking for ulcers or some sort of damage done by GERD, and into the stomachs again to see how much acid is in there. There's ulcers in there, and the duodenum. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for in this type of visual examination. All right, so let's go back to the whiteboard. Okay, and I'm going to give you let me see. Sharing blackboard. Okay, hold on. Stop sharing. Okay. So basically what I'm going to give you here, I'm going to write down and then I'm going to erase it. Okay. I'm going to give you chapter 1 quiz password. We've already finished reviewing chapter 1. Chapter 1 quiz password is Latin terms. And you write it the way I wrote it. Capital Latin space terms, exactly the way it is in the chapter 1 quiz when it's asking you for a password. Okay, so see it, look at it. All right, I'm going to erase this now. Okay, so let's see if I can. I don't know, maybe I can't. Hold on. I don't know, maybe I can't. Can I? I can't. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let me go back. All right, so chapter 2, so that was chapter 1, quiz password, and we reviewed chapter 1. So now we're going to go into chapter 2. And chapter 2, I need for you to have your book with you. If you don't have your book, or if you have an ebook, open up a new tab so you can open up the chapter while I'm looking at it and you're looking at it at the same time. So chapter 2 is talking about body structure, oncology, and laboratory tests. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is basic biology. And that's the reason why you saw a picture of a cell. So let's go back to that picture. So we're going to remind you or go a quick review down memory lane and see if you remember your biology. Okay? I know some of you are going like, no. Okay, but that's okay. It's just a review. You don't need to know like every little single part of the cell, but you should know basic stuff of cell biology. Why? Because your diseases and disorders can be begin in different levels in your body. It can be in a cellular level, it can be in a tissue level, in a systemic level, in an organ. You know, when we talked about, for example, the most recent, obviously, major epidemic that we had was the COVID-19. And in terms of public health, one of the things that we have to do is explain to our clients, explain to the patients, how does the disease occur? Is it infectious? Is it contagious? Is it genetic? Is it hereditary? Is it something that just happens out of the blue? Are there risks involved? Are behaviors that you do as a patient? Are you doing something that may contribute to the risk? Those kind of things are important, and you can't explain these things if you don't understand how your body works in terms of your biology. So you do need to remember certain things, maybe not all in detail because we're not dealing with biology per se, but you do need to know basic stuff that will obviously contribute to understanding how diseases and disorders are spread and develop, okay, or how we treat them as well. Okay, so let's review. So remember that there are two different types of cells in your in the body, not in the body, but well, actually there is. But you have eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells, right? And prokaryotic cells are the ones that are like bacteria. You and plant cells and animal cells, human cells are all eukaryotic, which means that they have a cell membrane. Cells that have membranes, okay, around them, okay, and they also have nuclei, okay. So this one that I'm going to label first is your cell membrane. And if you were a plant, you would also have a cell wall. But because you're an animal, you have animal cells, you only have a cell membrane surrounding it. Now, obviously, these organelles also have membranes on there, but we're not going to talk about them right now. But just so that you are aware. Your cell membrane envelops everything that's in the middle, okay? And in the middle, you have this liquidy stuff right here, and that's going to be called your cytoplasm. And remember that word because we're going to use that again later on as an explanation of word parts. Okay, some of these are going to be made of word parts, okay? So that's your cytoplasm, all right? Then you have, obviously, your eukaryotics, you have a nucleus. So this is going to be your brain, right? The brain of the cell. Inside the brain, you have the genetic material, and we talked about that before in chapter 1, and those are called chromosomes, which contain genetic material or genes, which are made out of DNA. Okay? All right. You also have this one that kind of looks like a hot dog with mustard on it or something like that. Okay, this one is the power of your cell, and this is the mitochondria. This creates ATP, or your energy, right? It's your energy, your battery, whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's the mitochondria. You also have this squiggly thing here. I mean, there's a lot of squiggly things in your cells, but one of them is called the endoplasmic reticulum. And this is going to be a rough actually a rough endoplasmic reticulum because there's dots on it. And these dots are called, they can be loose in the cell or they can be attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. These are called ribosomes. And this is where you make protein. And we use mRNA and tRNA when making proteins. Okay. All right. So why is all of this important? Well, let's use the COVID as the what do you call it? The mRNA vaccine against COVID, so that we can explain how these things work. Okay. All right. So for you to explain to your client why mRNA vaccines are very ingenious, let's put it that way, okay? Because a lot of people were thinking, oh my God, these vaccines are being created so quickly, and why, and blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, the coronaviruses, specifically the SARS strain, have been going on since, I don't know, like 2009 or something like that. There was a SARS, a sudden acute respiratory syndrome disease happening in China. I believe it was like 2009 or something like that, around there. Okay. And it was basically, think of it as COVID, okay, but not as extreme, okay? And it was able to be contained only in China. So at that time, scientists were already starting to develop a vaccine for that. But because it was contained and removed, basically, from being a threat, an epidemic threat, that it wasn't developed into a vaccine at that point because it was not needed. Okay, well, there was another type of SARS eruption, if you will, in the Middle East, and that was a Middle Eastern strain. And so that happened, and that was like, also like in 2015 or 16, I think that's what. Don't quote me on the years, but it's somewhere in there. Okay, so again, there was more data, more information scientists collected to be able to create a vaccine for that. So they had the basis already. Scientists had the basis of these coronaviruses, infections, contagious diseases happening because they had already erupted. But because they were contained and did not spread into becoming a global epidemic or pandemic as we had it this past 2020, there was no need to create the vaccine yet. So when COVID arrived, the scientists already had all the information that they needed to continue and go forth and create a vaccine a lot quicker than it would have. The only issue was that we did not have the time because how deadly the virus was and the disease was, that we did not have enough time to test it as well as we could have. The good thing is that it's based on other vaccines that we've already used, and so we already had an idea what the risks would be because of the risks of all vaccines have some risk, but the majority of the good that it does, overpowers or outweighs the risks or the that it might cause. Okay, so that's how things are determined on whether they are effective or they are safe or not. Okay, so these mRNA vaccines, why are they important, and what does this have to do with this picture in front of you? Well, if you remember that your DNA replicates itself through mitosis, right? And in this mitosis, you have the ladder, sorry. So you have your, okay, you have your DNA this way, right? and it opens up like a zipper. And at the time, one side of your ladder will create a replication, but not in the side of another DNA. It's going to make it into an RNA. Okay, and this RNA, okay, so now it's RNA. And this RNA, I believe it's a tRNA, goes into the ribosomes, right? And transcribes into protein. Okay, so now in the ribosomes, you create what they call a protein. And these proteins are hormones or what do you call it? Or steroids or whatever, and they go off and do what they need to do. Okay? All right. So what happens with the mRNA is that now instead of a vaccine having a dead virus in the vaccine and then injecting it into your cells so that the cell can say, oh my God, there's a new thing in my body, I got to get rid of it. Let's create some antibodies for it so that I can remember what it looks like. So the next time it shows up, I can go kill it. Okay? This time, I'm going to give a genetic part of the virus. Okay? And this genetic part is the mRNA. Okay? The mRNA of the virus. Okay, because viruses have genetic material, but they do not have proteins. So because they don't have proteins inside them, they cannot replicate themselves. They cannot replicate the structure of their outer coating and stuff. They don't have that mechanism. And so they need to hijack cells from animals or plants to be able to replicate itself. Okay, in this process that we're talking about here, they can't do it because they don't have the components, the nucleic acids and all that kind of stuff to be able to replicate. So what happens is that scientists have found viruses have what they call, let me see, the coronaviruses have these little spikes on the outside. That's what they're called, coronaviruses, because it looks like they have a crown of spikes around them. And these spikes are called spike proteins. And these are the proteins that attach to the cells and cause them to open up. And once the virus is inside, it hitches onto this mechanism right here, and then it creates, instead of proteins that the cell needs, it creates its own proteins, and then it makes little viruses inside the cell until the cell explodes, and then there's a whole billions of viruses, and then they just repeat the whole thing. So what happens with mRNA vaccines is that they've taken a genetic material of these spike proteins and allowed, when it injects into your body, the cells make a replication of this protein, and the body recognizes that this is not a protein that is yours. It is a stranger, and so it starts to kill it. And once it learns how to kill it, it will identify it a lot faster. So when the virus comes back and tries to connect with the cell, your immune system will already say, oh, wait a minute, we know what these little spike proteins do. We're going to kill it before it even attaches. And so that's the idea behind these mRNA vaccines. And if this virus starts to change, where you have another variant, right, then it's a lot easier to create new vaccines, because now all I have to do is adjust this genetic material. Okay, so it's really interesting. Okay, and it seems to be more effective. Like the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is just like a regular vaccine that we've used before. This is a new kind, and so that's really interesting how these work. But you notice that if I did not understand how cell biology works, I would not be able to explain how effective or diffuse the fear that some people have on vaccines. Same reason as to why you need to know how your immune system works, or how your cardiovascular system works. All this kind of stuff is important for you to understand, so that when you talk to your um, to your patients, that you can explain to them in a way that it seems logical and sensible, so that they are not afraid of it, or they at least make better choices. If not, even if they don't follow your orders, or they follow the guidelines, they at least understand what is happening to them. Because once you give knowledge, they cannot unlearn it. And so that's why some people just don't want to know, because once you know it, you know it. You can't hide it anymore. Okay? All right, so that's the beginning of chapter 2, and that's the beginning of the review of this. So let's go back to our... So remember that we know the cell is the basic unit of all living things. The bacteria is a one singular cell organism, right? It's a unicellular organism. Our cells, our diseases and conditions can occur in a cellular level, like the COVID, okay, because the virus attacks you in a cellular level, and there are particular cells that affect your breathing, especially your breathing, and so that's why it's affecting the lungs ultimately. Um, it can affect the tissues. So the cells, when they work together and they're all the same type of cell and they function in the same way, they become tissues. So tissue is a group of similar cells that perform a specific function. Once you have a variety of different tissues working for the same function, they're not the same tissues anymore, but they work for the same purpose, then you have an organ. So that's two or more types of tissue that together perform special body functions. Once these organs, a variety of organs, work together for a similar function, then it becomes a body system, a group of organs that work together to perform complex body functions. So once you have all of these systems working together, then we have that organism. And in this case, we're going to be talking about obviously the human body, not an animal body, a human body specifically. The other thing that you need to remember is the types of tissues that you have in your body. You have muscle tissue, which produces movement. Okay, it does not control movement. It produces movement. Okay, nervous tissue is responsible for coordinating and controlling body activities. Nervous tissue or the nervous system is the one that actually causes you to move. Okay. If you don't have a good nervous system, if your nervous tissue is not working as well, your muscles are not going to be able to work, even though they may be healthy by themselves. They cannot produce movement if your nerves are not working. If your brain is not working and it's not telling your muscles to move, the muscles won't move regardless whether you have them or not. Okay? So muscle tissue produces movement. Nervous tissue is responsible for coordinating and controlling the body activities. You also have connective tissue that connects, supports, penetrates, and encases various body structures. It can be part of skin, right? Skin is not connective tissue, and it's not epithelial tissue either. Major covering of the external surface of the body. That's epithelial tissue. Okay, skin is made up of epithelial and connective tissues. It is not. It is not a tissue, it's actually an organ, okay? So just watch out for those kind of things. Body systems, you have the integumentary. I don't know, for some reason I don't know what happened here. But there's the integumentary system, which is the skin, everything to do with the skin, your respiratory system, your urinary system, your reproductive, cardiovascular, your lymphatic and your immune system are put together, your digestive system, and your musculoskeletal system. So all of these, and then you also have the nervous system and the endocrine system. It didn't show up here, okay? But those are going to be on page 18 of your book. So this is page 18. I'm not going to go over the definitions. We should go over the definitions, and as we're going through these systems in each chapter, we'll also go over the definition and what the purpose and the functionality of that system is, okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is your body cavities, okay? So look at this picture real quick, okay? So, okay, so I'm going to stop right here. Okay, so now you tell me. Okay, write it down somewhere and see if you can answer these questions. Okay, if you are working in the ER and this patient comes in and he says he has a headache, what cavity are we dealing with? So that would be the cranial cavity, right? Because that's the brain, okay? Let's say he just says, instead of a headache, he says, oh, I fell on my back. And it just says back. And you notice that there's bruises all over that can be from top to the bottom of his hip area, okay? That whole area is called the dorsal cavity. If it's not specific enough, like if it doesn't say spine, like, oh, I can't walk, or I can't move my neck, or I can't, that kind of thing, then that means that we are looking at the dorsal cavity, okay? But if the person had said, I can't move my legs, or I can't move my neck, okay, that might indicate a spinal injury, because the spine is where you're going to have control of the movement of the limbs. And if that person cannot move or feels stiff, it might be a spinal injury. Okay, that would be the spinal cavity. Okay, what if that person fell down and fell flat on their face and on their chest? Well, the face is one thing, but the chest would be more, because it's just fell, it would be considered more the thoracic cavity or ventral cavity, because we don't know if falling on their chest meant falling on their chest and abdomen, okay, the whole area. And it's not very specific, okay. I'm not saying that, oh, I have pains in the chest when I breathe, or might have heart palpitations or something like that. That would indicate more a thoracic cavity, that I can't breathe or I have heart palpitations. That's a thoracic cavity. But if I'm saying that the person fell on their front part, okay, flat on their face, right on the cement, and they skid, that would probably mean that we're dealing with the ventral cavity, at least in the larger picture. Let's say it's a woman that comes in and says that her period is running too long. Okay, well, now we're dealing with the pelvic cavity, okay, because that's where the reproductive organs are, all right? Let's say we're talking about the urinary incontinence or something like that, okay? That also would probably be a pelvic cavity, okay? What if a person is suffering from food poisoning, okay, or stomach ache or something like that? Then there would be an abdominal cavity, okay? But if the person gets stabbed in the stomach area, okay, then it would be abdominal pelvic cavity. That would be the whole section, all right? So all of this kind of stuff is important, especially if you're doing sonography, you're going into radiology or anything like that. You need to know the basic body cavities, okay? So cranial is where your brain is, spinal is specific to the spine, but both the cranial and spinal cavity in the larger picture is the dorsal cavity. The ventral cavities include the thoracic, which is your chest, the abdominal pelvic cavity, which runs right underneath the diaphragm all the way to the pelvis. And then that abdominal pelvic cavity can be separated into only the abdominal area, which is the intestinal area, or the reproductive area, which is and the hip, which is the pelvic cavity. Okay. All right, so the next thing I want you to do is I want you to start looking at page 20 and 21. And so I'm going to go over the combining forms that go with chapter 2. And remember, this is the way that combining forms will be introduced to you. Some of them may be repeated if they have to, but most of the time the combining forms that you're going to see are associated with the topic in the chapter itself. So because chapter 2 is dealing with body structure, oncology, and laboratory tests, you're going to be seeing combining forms that are associated with that. Okay. Also, prefixes and suffixes that can be used in addition to the combining forms to create these terms that are related to that subject in the chapter. Okay. All right. So quickly, what I need for you to do, and if you have a brand new book, you have flashcards that you can use to start memorizing these things. So before we go on to when we go on to chapter 3, I'm going to quiz you in the lecture. We're going to go over some of it to see if you are memorizing these things, okay? So adeno, I'm not going to go over all the combining forms, but I will whatever I can. Adeno means gland. So any gland, there are two different types of glands in your body. There's exocrine glands and there's endocrine glands. When we go to chapter 4, we're going to talk about exocrine glands. Those are the ones that secrete liquid or substance outside of the body. And then there's endocrine glands that are dealing with the endocrine system in chapter 16. Epithely has to do with the epithelium, right, which is that tissue that covers things. It's not skin, it is part of skin, but it doesn't have to be part of skin. It's also can be internal in any kind of tissue that surrounds other organs and stuff. That's epithelial tissue. Fibro is fiber or fibrous. The fiber you eat, this is fibrous material. Hemat means blood. And sarc means flesh or connective tissue. Now, I'm going to show you how some things can change depending on what we attach to it. Notice that sarc, okay, means flesh or connective tissue. Now let me go to the suffixes. And you hear I have a suffix called oma. Oma means tumor, okay, or it can also mean a swelling, okay, so tumor or swelling. All right, so if I want to combine, now this is a suffix, if I combine sarc with oma, that's sarcoma, that means it's a tumor of connective tissue, which is more likely a malignant type of condition of cancer, okay? Now, oma by itself in oncology does not necessarily mean it is cancerous, okay? Sometimes it may, depending on what kind of oma it is. And the oncologist knows automatically which one is which, okay? We don't necessarily know, okay? But most of the time when you see the word sarcoma like this, it could be malignant, okay? So you're going to see these terms. Might as well just show them to you because we're going to talk about them. Malignant and benign. Now, malignant and benign are terms that are modern language. These are not word part type of terms. I cannot separate them into sections to figure out what this means. So you need to understand what this means as is. Malignant means that it is repetitive. It will come back. In other words, it is cancerous. Okay, malignant is something that's bad. Okay, benign means that something that it's okay, it's good, it's non-repetitive, it's not going to come back, it's there, but it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to come back. Do you need to remove it? It's up to you. It might be nuisance, might be needed too, it depends on the oncologist says. Okay, so those are terms that you're going to see constantly when we're talking about cancer. Okay, so sarcoma is a tumor of connective tissue. Now, if I'm going to sarcoma can also be used as a suffix in itself, and you can see it on page 21. If you see it like this, that means it's a word. If you see it like this, that is a suffix, and sarcoma as a suffix means malignant tumor. Okay, so how am I going to use that? Well, let's go back to the combining forms with, okay, so let's say you have an adenoma. So adenomas are tumors or gland tumors. Okay, tumors in the glands. You can have, let's say, for example, you can have breast cancer. Not breast cancer, but breast tumors that are glandular. Okay, tumor glands or tumor of the glands. Okay, so for example, when a woman checks their breast and they feel lumps, one of the ways that it can be occurring is because the glands, the milk glands, lactating glands in the breasts are clogged up or they're swelling, okay, and those are adenomas. They're more than likely they're benign, okay. So there's nothing wrong with them, but they might hurt, they might be painful, they might be drained. Okay, they insert a little needle and they remove the liquid from it to drain it, kind of like a pimple type of situation. Okay, so those are adenomas. Now, if I change the suffix to adenosarcoma, adenosarcomas are malignant tumors. These are cancerous tumors of the glands. So now they're not benign. For some reason, the change of the structure and stuff have they look different and they've grown faster and whatever, and so these are cancerous. And the way that I know it's cancerous is because the term says sarcoma. Another way that I can say it, and it means the same thing, would be adenocarcinoma. Because carcin means cancer. So when you see a word that ends with sarcoma or ends with carcinoma, it is automatically, to you in your head, should be malignant. These are bad. Omas by themselves, not necessarily. Those can be benign. Okay, but again, I'm not an oncologist. I don't know which one is just off the top of my head. But if I see an oma by itself, I would have to wait to see a biopsy and see is this benign or malignant. But when I see sarcoma, if the doctor tells me I have adenosarcoma or adenocarcinoma, whichever how he says it or she says it, then I'm going to know that, yeah, that's cancer. And the only thing that I'm going to ask next is what stages I am. Am I in stage 1, 2, 3, or 4, or maybe I think there's a 0, but it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, 4 being the worst. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for. All right, so other body structures, okay, that are related to this. Okay, you have crypt. Crypt means hidden. Okay. Necro, I'm going to switch over to necro. Necro means death. Okay, so let's look at some words that have these combining forms. So let me look for one that says crypt. I don't know where it would be. Let's see. I don't know why they mention crypt, but because I can't find the word that has the crypt in it. Crypt, 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 crypt. Cytosis, visceral, somatogenic, necrosis. Don't know. Plasma, carcinoma. They have adenocarcinoma. See, I don't know why they have crypt in here, but you will use it later on. I just can't find it in this chapter. It's really weird. Cytopathology, virology, hematology. Huh. don't know neology or intergenic, just carcinoid. Nope. Don't know why they put crypt in here. They don't use the word, but it means crypt. It means hidden. For sure, it's going to come out in chapter 4. I'll use it then, okay? Because I can't find a word in chapter 2 that has crypt in it. But you do need to remember that means hidden. Okay, onco means tumor, right? Or mass. Okay, so now, oncology, logy, let me see if I have, yeah. So we have logy, right? Logy means the study of. So an oncology, let's go back. Here we have oncology, right? Oncology is the study of tumors, or you have the physician who studies oncology is the oncologist. Okay, let's do some more. You had hemat, right? Blood. So you have a hematologist, or hematology, or hematologist. Hematologist. So in cancer, when you have cancer treatment, you will probably have a hematologist on board, because there are obviously cancers of the blood, but within the treatment itself, the treatments that are for cancer, you need to understand how it affects blood cells, and so you're going to have a hematologist on board, okay? You have lyo and rhabdo. So lie means smooth, and rhabdo means striated. So you have terms like, let's try myoma. So myoma are tumors of the muscle tissue. My means muscle. So leiomyoma are tumors of the smooth muscle. And what are the smooth muscles in your body? Smooth muscles are the ones that you do not consciously control to create movement in your body. So your internal muscles that regulate your digestive system, you know, the peristalsis movement that you have in your body, your breathing. Yes, granted, you can move your diaphragm, but there are other muscles that it can also move without you consciously moving it. Cardiac muscle is a type of smooth muscle, but it can also be a type of striated muscle because of the way that it can enlarge itself when you exercise a lot or when the heart is overworked. Okay, so rhabdo, so leiomyoma doesn't necessarily mean that it's they're malignant, because remember, it's an oma. Okay, there are tumors there, but they may not be malignant. Okay, but if I put leiomyosarcoma, now we're talking about a malignant tumor in the smooth muscle cells. Okay, you also have rhabdomyomas, and these are tumors in the striated muscles. So striated muscles are those that control your movement, that you are consciously making it move, like the ones in your limbs, okay, your facial gestures, things like that. Those are consciously being controlled by you, and those are striated muscles, okay? All right, so those are kind of words that you're going to see. You're also going to see, because we're talking about body structure, is descriptive terms of color, because color, one of the things that you're going to see in all of our patients, it's either going to see signs or you're going to see symptoms. And remember, signs are things that can be measured. Can be measured. Okay, symptoms are felt by the patient only. Okay, so signs are things that you are looking at or you can measure, like your weight, your fever, your blood pressure. You can check for texture. Okay, you can check for like bumps. You can measure the size of the bumps. Okay, lesions, lacerations, bruises, which is a type of a lesion. You can look at what else? So these are color changes that you're looking at, okay? Those are signs, okay? Symptoms are things that the patient will tell you, I have a headache, I feel lethargic, I feel sick, I'm dizzy, I feel pain. Those are things that are symptomatic, okay, that you cannot necessarily measure. You can probably put them on a scale and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much pain do you feel? But it really isn't measurable in terms of proper units of measurement. Okay, so those are symptoms. So colors are important to us. So we're going to use combining forms to define these colors. So cyan means blue. Erythro means red. Leuco means white. Melon means black or dark. And xanth means yellow. Oops. You also have, no, that's it. That's all the other colors that they have. Okay. All right. So you have conditions of different colors. So you can have cyanosis, xanthosis, or another way to use them, there's melanoma, and then there's erythrocyte and leukocyte. Okay, so cyanosis means that it's an abnormal condition of blue. Well, what does that mean? It means that you're turning blue. Why would you be turning blue? Because you can't breathe or you have a lack of circulation in something, some space. So if your fingertips are turning blue, it's probably because you are getting no circulation to your fingertips. If your lips are turning blue or your area of around your lips are turning blue, you're probably not being able to breathe or you're choking. Okay? Xanthosis is a condition of yellowing. Another word for xanthosis would be jaundice. Jaundice, remember, same word, different flavor, different version, okay? Xanthosis is Greek and Latin term. Jaundice is not, okay? It's a modern language word, okay? So, at least I think. May not be. I need to look that up. But basically, it means the same thing. You're turning yellow. Why would you be turning yellow? Probably because you have some liver damage. You have an increased number of toxins in your blood, and it's making that yellow color. And most of the time in liver damage, the first thing that's going to happen is that the white of your eye is going to turn yellow. Okay? Another word for yellowing is also called cirrhosis. Okay? All right, melanoma. Melanoma, you know, can be malignant, okay? Probably melanocarcinoma is the way that you would say it. Melanoma itself, not necessarily. But it is a dark lesion on your skin that looks kind of black. And it looks maybe like a mole, but it's changed in color and texture, maybe gotten darker and bigger. That would be a melanoma. Erythrocyte, cyte is a suffix that means cell, right? So cyte means cell. And you have three basic different types of cells in your body. You have leukocytes, erythrocytes, and thrombocytes. We're going to be talking about thrombocytes later on, but today we're going to be talking about erythrocyte and leukocyte. Okay, so there is one thing that I do want to show you, and that is osis. And osis means abnormal condition or increase in number of a cell. So what does that mean? That means that if you have osis behind a word like in xanthosis, it means that you have an abnormal condition. But if I were to write erythrocyte, now erythrocyte is a red blood cell. Notice that there is no hemat in here. It's not erythrohematocyte. It's just erythrocyte. Hemato is implied. So leukocyte is implied. It's also a blood cell, but it's white. So you have red blood cells, white blood cells, but if I were to put osis behind it, so erythrocytosis means that there's an increase in number of red blood cells. Okay? If it's leukocytosis, that means it's an increase in number of white blood cells, which may indicate an infection. Erythrocytosis, an increase in number, may mean that, again, you're either anemic or there's maybe a cancer, because cancer tends to mean that there is an increase in cells when there shouldn't be. Okay? All right, so prefixes. Prefixes here are giving you description. So dia means through or complete. Dis means a lot of things, and depending on what is attached to it, it changes its meaning. So dis means, let's put dis means painful, abnormal, difficult, or labored. Hyper means excessive or above. Above in meaning that it's above something, like location. Excessive is talking about amount or intensity. Hypo can be also direction, below, incomplete, efficient, or under. And pro means before. Okay. So I'm going to go over suffixes, and then we'll talk about opsy is a view of, and plasia also has a lot of definitions. Plasia means condition of formation, development, and growth. All right, so let's go back to the whiteboard and let's talk about some of this stuff here. Okay, so let's talk about how cancer develops and use some of these words. So if you want to look at some of the stuff that I'm drawing up here, look in your book and go to page 37. Okay, so at the beginning, your cells should kind of look like this, and you have your nucleus, and they're nice and shaped. Okay, so these are going to be normal. All right, normal. But later on, kind of like a mole. Let's say the mole is normal, it's fine. You've seen it before, it's been there for a long time. But all of a sudden, you see this normal size begun getting bigger for some reason. The cells still look normal, you know, but now it's bigger. So this is what you call hyperplasia. So hyper, I just said, means excessive. Plasia has that a lot of definitions. So which one is it? Is it abnormal? Is it difficult? Is it labeled? In this case, we're talking about cancer. This means that it's excessively abnormal. Or excessive development, excessive growth. Okay, that's what we're talking about in hyperplasia. Okay, but then later on, now it's changing color. And it's kind of changing shape on you. You still have a few normal cells, but it doesn't look the same. And there's not a lot of normal cells. There's more ugly cells in here, okay? This is what you call dysplasia, where it's abnormal, okay? So plasia means growth, development, growth and development. So I'm sorry if I misspoke there. So hyperplasia means excessive development. Dysplasia here now it means abnormal development. So this is not necessarily abnormal. Hyperplasia is not necessarily abnormal. It just means that it's growing more than usual, but the cells are all normal. But once they start changing color, texture, and then maybe they're still growing, then this is dysplasia. Okay. This can be maybe cancerous or not. It depends. Most of the time, it's heading in that direction, and so it would probably be removed or there's a biopsy done at this point. Okay? So if they get the biopsy and they notice that these black cells are cancerous, then the dysplasia would probably be stage 1. Okay? Then we go to a situation where it's growing a little bit, but there's no normal cells anymore. These are all cancerous cells, but it hasn't moved. So this is called, and I'm going to spell it out so it'll be easier to see. This is called carcinoma in situ. And this is one of those words where it looks like you can separate into sections, but you can't because it's not all based Latin and Greek. Okay? So, and it's not connected, that's why. So carcinoma, we know that it's cancerous, but in situ means that it's in place. It's not going anywhere. So this is probably stage 2, maybe even stage 1, depending on the size, okay, and how easily it can spread, okay. So more than likely, you're going to remove it by surgery, or you would have some treatments. We'll talk about the treatments in a little bit. Okay, but let's say this carcinoma in situ starts to move. Now it's spreading all over. And it's getting bigger. Okay, that is called invasive carcinoma, right? Or it's called metastasis or metastatic. Metastatic carcinoma, invasive, same thing. Metastatic means meta means beyond, static or status or stasis. Actually, let's put stasis here. Metastasis. Metastasis. Stasis? Metastasize. Let's see. Let me make sure that I'm spelling it correct, because if not, that's bad. Let me look for the term. Let me look for it for you. And make sure that it is in here or not, because I don't want to use it if it's not here. So metastasis, yeah, metastasis. Okay, so if it's metastasis, that means that it's beyond control. The carcinoma is now stage 4. It is invasive. Okay, so what are the treatments that are being used in here? You have, obviously, you have surgery. You have a biopsy first, right? It's a viewing of life. Basically, it's a sample that they take of you while you're still alive. It's not an autopsy. Okay, an autopsy is when they view you when you're dead. A biopsy is when you're looking at it while you have a live sample. Your sample, their specimen is coming from a live person. So they view it, they check it to see if it's cancerous or not. There's a biopsy done, and then you have treatments. You can do surgery. You can have chemotherapy, or chemo as this acronym. You can have biological therapy, which is your or it's called immunotherapy. This is when you use your immune system, kind of like a vaccine type of situation, where you're allowing your immune system to learn about the cancer and kill it on its own. And then there's also radiation therapy. Okay, so what are the difference between them? Obviously, there's risks in all of these. Okay, surgery doesn't mean that they take everything out. It still might spread, okay, but they take the majority of out. Sometimes they even have to do surgery first and then chemotherapy because the lump is too big to do chemo on it. So they reduce the size of it and then do the chemo. Chemotherapy is given either orally or intravenously, okay? And basically what chemotherapy does is kills all cells in your body that are rapidly growing. So it doesn't discriminate. It attacks every fast growing cell. And this is the reason why you have those side effects of losing your hair, or your nails get soft and ugly and they start feeling bad. You have no eyelashes, no hair anywhere in your body. Your gastrointestinal cells are also damaged, so that's why you're throwing up. You have nausea, you're fatigued, all this kind of stuff that's happening with chemotherapy because chemo does not discriminate. Okay, it kills cancer, but it also kills other cells in your body. Biological therapy, again, may be more targeting because it's training your immune system to kill the cancer itself. Okay, so it only works with certain types of cancers. Radiation therapy can also be very targeted, especially if it's a small lump. Okay, however, the problem is that it also burns. There is a risk of burning whatever is surrounding it. And if the cancer returns in this or close to the same site, you cannot do surgery anymore because now the radiation has pretty much fused cells when they shouldn't be fused. And so it's very risky to do surgery after that. You would have to go in to do more radiation or do therapy, chemotherapy on that. Okay, so these are things that are happening with people with cancer. So let's stop right here and we'll review for the next chapter, and I'm going to give you chapter 2 quiz password. And chapter 2 quiz password is, look at how smart I am. I'm going to give you cancer terms. Ingenious, right? So remember, spell it the way that I have spelled it specifically. Okay, capital CANCER space TERMS. Okay, So got it? You look it? You got it? Okay, remember that I also put chapter 1 quiz password somewhere in the lecture. Look for it. You need to look at the lecture, and we'll stop right here and we'll finish reviewing chapter 2, and then we'll go into chapter 3 in the next lecture. Okay, don't forget to get your chapter 1 and chapter 2 quiz passwords to help you out with those quizzes. Okay, bye-bye.